Welcome to another edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff Deforrest. Very happy to be with you. And yes, we moved to 5-0 on our personal baseball picks here on the program since we got things underway 2 weeks ago. So that's been good. That's been a favorable development. So, although, let's face it, as we often say, this is not for the faint of heart, this degenerate gambling. And there is cause for celebration, of course, today, as we are now in a period where I'm not sure how many weeks they said it was going to be in a row of college football, where there will be football every Saturday for like the next 300 years of Saturdays. It's going to be incredible, and everybody's salivating over the fact that the college football season is about to get underway. Now, if you're betting the college football season, and we're going to get some tremendous insight into the upcoming Florida State Georgia Tech game taking place in Ireland there, where everybody looks pasty. The weather is awful. You don't know if this is going to be like the Hawaii Bowl, where one team shows up and the other team is partying and they got their quarterback is diving off the second story of a cheesy motel into a shallow pool. You're just not sure how each team is going to approach the game, although kind of a crucial game early on in the ACC season, with Georgia Tech hoping to continue a little bit of a rise that they gave into last year. And Florida State still, I mean, they have every reason to be bemoaning the fact that they didn't get into the college football playoffs last year. And that comes strictly under the heading of, hey, Florida State, you're fucked. Now, if you're betting these games and you want to get involved, the line has gone down to 10 and a hook in a lot of places and may climb up again. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason in the NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline has every stat. They have every matchup and even live odds and spreads while the games are in progress. If you really think you know your stuff, and this is always fascinating, get in on the winner-take-all $300,000 survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to their online casino. You can play poker, you can play blackjack, and get involved in and indulge in over 150 slot games that are available to you. Head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Get in on all the action. Bet online. The game starts here. All right, so we're going to hopefully dive into some college football here with the professor, who is as astute a handicapper of college football as I've known in my lifetime. And I would have to say I probably can vouch for the fact that it's one of the few guys that you can put in the category of being ahead lifetime on all of his wagers, and really gets into it. So we'll get some insight into the upcoming games. There are a couple of other Division I games also on the slate. A lot of people looking at that Montana State game against New Mexico, and we'll dive into that as well. But last night, and this gets into a little bit of gambling etiquette also. If you make a big score, let's say you're at the track with one of your buddies, and all day long, this is somebody you go with frequently, one of your guys that you're always running to the racetrack with, or you run into there, and you're hanging out together, you're handicapping together. Maybe you share a few bets, and he's getting buried, or she is getting buried, whoever it may be. We're not sexist here. We don't differentiate, because it's always great to see a woman who happens to know all of the vernacular and has some insight into what's going on at a racetrack. And there are more and more of those being over time, where we're seeing, well, what? I mean, all of the handicapping sites feature some hot babe. The over-under is on, I hate to be misogynistic, but almost on breast size, right? Where she's got the game that she wants to pick on one of two rather well-endowed bumps on the chest. It's crazy. I mean, you never see these type of people in any gambling establishment, do you? But that's where you're getting your handicapping information from these days, which is kind of strange. But I'm getting a vicarious thrill. And a friend of mine had made a big score, and I was thinking, geez, when you're at the racetrack, if you make a big score at the end of the day, is it common degenerate etiquette to have to fork over a couple of sticks to the poor person that you went with, who is whining the entire day about, well, I'm not making any money here, I'm losing my ass. I think it's obligatory, is it not? I mean, it's kind of like leaving a generous tip at the table when the waiter is or the service has been exceptional. Don't you have to at least throw a couple of sticks to the person and cover them? And you're hoping that even after 10 or 12 times where you've sent money their way, that maybe the one time they win. This is when I guess you find out who your true friends are in gambling. Maybe the one time they win, they actually send some capital your way. That would be nice. So I'm getting a vicarious thrill through a friend of mine who made a giant score betting on a baseball game. And comes back and tells me last night that he had, and we had given out on the show, Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, I mean, is this really a bold pick? Can we take a lot of credit for it? Well, we did move to 5-0 on our baseball picks here on Bury Your Bookie, but minus 155 to win 100 was a little bit prohibitive. And kind of an awkward outlay in a baseball game. Skeens had been pitching very well, as he has all season. Viable candidate for Rookie of the Year. Could even be, I mean, he's a distant consideration in the Cy Young race, but he hasn't played the whole season. So now moves to 8-2. The Pittsburgh Pirates win 7-0. They rally for 6 in the 5th inning, tack on a run in the 7th. And that put a certain friend of ours in a very precarious situation, because he had dumped $50,000 on the under in this game. 7 and a hook, I guess he had it at. I saw it later on at 7. And so while I'm coasting to a victory here with Paul Skeens, he pitched through the 6th inning after the Pirates rally. They took him out of the ball game, but the Cincinnati Reds were not able to muster up much of anything against the ensuing relievers who came on. And sure enough, the game ended up 7-0. So we win, and our gentleman has 50,000 that he's already pocketed on the under in that ball game, getting it at 7 and a hook. After literally, I mean, you would have to be on all kinds of sedatives to watch the last 6 outs of that ball game without having any runs being scored, because you were right there at the number, living and dying by that hook. So later on, the same guy has another 50 grand on the Mets and the Padres. A good pitching matchup there with Dylan Cease on the mound for the Padres, and he's got 50 grand on the under there, and it's 7.5, figuring that it was going to be a well-pitched ball game, which it was all the way through. And sure enough, what happens? You get to the 9th inning, the Padres bring in a guy named Logan Gillespie, and this friend of ours will have nightmares about Logan Gillespie his entire life, because he persists to go ahead and give up 5 runs in the top of the 9th inning. Now the game's over, and the Mets go on and win this thing 8-3. Final total 11, and $50,000 with a bag with wings on it, just flying out the window. And so what could have been a sensational $100,000 evening for our buddy turns out to be a pay the juice, pay the vig, and consider yourself lucky that it didn't go over in the other ballgame. Very treacherous turf to be treading on as we're trying to get you home free with some baseball picks. But that had to be. I mean, you talk about the agony of defeat. That's 2 days in a row we've seen games go up in smoke in the 9th inning when betting over unders. But we're happy about it. End up with a win, 5-0 on the season so far in baseball. We hope we can have this kind of luck for you in the football season. I don't see the connection with the professor that we were looking for here. So I'll go ahead and tell you what I already know about this ball game, the Florida State game against Georgia Tech. We had the Greek on earlier this week, and he's, I mean, like I say, would you rather be lucky than good? The Greek, without a whole lot of foundational logic behind a lot of his selections, somehow over the years has always managed to be a winner. And he said, hey, listen, take the points with Georgia Tech. The line has been plummeting. It's a very strong line movement. If you look at a line going from 13.5 all the way down to 10.5, where it stood today. But the recommendation was jump on that now. This was the professor's opinion, saying that most of these games, I mean, if you were going to look at the decision-making factor, the deciding factor in most football games, where are they won and lost? I sound like Newt Rockney here when I say this, but all won and lost at the line of scrimmage. So who has a better edge in those categories? If you look at Florida State, and Florida State had to whip into the transfer portal, this is a whole new dynamic in college football, and something that if you're handicapping, you have to take into consideration, and that is taking a look at what was lost and what was gained. And not only the losses to graduation and the pros and the transfer portal as well, but what was gained in the transfer portal seems to be the key. Recruiting doesn't seem to really surface in terms of wins and losses or impact on the team, at least for a year. Sometimes you get the sensational freshman that's going to change your program's fate. But more often than not, recruiting classes don't really show benefits until it's a year or two down the road. But the transfer portal is where you make immediate impact. Look at the Hurricanes getting Cam Ward at quarterback. That's a big transition for them, and something that couldn't have happened if they were looking at a freshman, unless they just happen to find the second coming of John Elway. So you have to take this into consideration. And when you do, and you look at Florida State, who Paul Feinbaum had labeled as, they're going to be having trouble seeing the field through all the tears they're shedding over getting fucked in the college football playoff last year by not being included in the postseason playoff. If you look at the lines there, the offensive line and the defensive line, while Georgia Tech's lines have been somewhat gutted in the offseason, and they're kind of starting from scratch, the Florida State lines, they should be superior. So his lean was, and he was suggesting that get in on this today before the line goes back up, because there's bound to be some kind of a bounce effect where all of a sudden, I don't know if this is so-called smart money or whatever it is that's fueling this decline in the point spread, but in favor of Georgia Tech. But he says, go ahead and lay the 10.5 with Florida State if you can get down on that at that number. That it looked to him like a two-touchdown ball game, two-touchdown differential. And so the original line of 13.5 was probably right on the money. And so 10.5 seems like a generous allotment. Go ahead, in the professor's opinion, and lay the points. Lay the points with Florida State over Georgia Tech. And that would be the big marquee game on the schedule. The other game that I'm hearing some steam on is Montana State and New Mexico. Montana State, an excellent team in their category, but they're favored by 13.5 over a New Mexico team that may be on the improve. They were playing some old, archaic, antiquated offense up until a year ago. Sort of found their stride maybe a little bit later in the season. And if they can show any kind of improve on that, even though they may be destined to lose this game, the 13.5 points with Montana State might be a generous allotment. And so if you're taking a look at that game, a slight lean towards New Mexico with the points over Montana State. So there you have it, as Gordon Soley, the great wrestling announcer, would say at the end of virtually every match. We had from the professor his picks, so I had to relay them to you personally here because unfortunately we weren't able to make the connection. But Florida State, especially if you get it at 10.5, likes Florida State over Georgia Tech, and then taking the points, 13.5 with New Mexico against Montana State, an excellent team, likely to win the game. But nonetheless, we're not probably going to cover 2 touchdowns in that one, at least according to our expertise. A couple of we did see, we talked a little bit about Anthony Richardson and how he was kind of scatterbrained. He looks like Mitch Williams out there, doesn't he? The old pitcher, Wild Thing from the Philadelphia Phillies. Mitch Williams, the reliever, used to come in. You didn't know if the ball was going to be right down the middle for a strike, maybe painting the black with a 98 mile an hour fastball, or if it was going to go right over the backstop, like he was in the Little League World Series. And that seems to be the way. The Cincinnati Bengals, who played the Colts, where we were talking about this. There was an article about it, how they were just openly mocking Anthony Richardson about his inability to hit wide open receivers. And if you looked at the display he put on yesterday, it seems like a really good kid. I saw an interview with him after the ball game, and it seemed like the kind of guy that you could warmly embrace. An outstanding athlete. Can run. We know that. He did a lot of that when he was at the University of Florida. I don't know that works if you're primarily a runner and a running quarterback in the pros. You have to be able to pass the rock. The accuracy problem, it came very much into focus in this game last night, in spite of the fact that the guy statistically was 8 of 14, threw a hideous pick 6 on the inside. Anthony Richardson and the Colts might be a team, and they win this ball game 27-14 over a Bengal team that obviously put no emphasis on it whatsoever, the final preseason game, and that's going to be the case with many teams. But Anthony Richardson looking very scatterarmed. If you saw the highlights, there were many lowlights among the 6 passes that he missed, just wide open guys that he couldn't find if he had a low jack in the football. And the other game last night, the Bears over the Chiefs. The Chiefs putting very little emphasis on their final preseason game. The Bears, who did not play Caleb Williams, Mahomes didn't sniff the field, win 34-21 last night. That opened up what'll be a full slate of final preseason games. And whose idea was it to take a week off? I mean, you talk about letting the steam out of the momentum that they're building here. Everybody's in wild anticipation of the opening of the National Football League season. They play a bunch of stinkeroo games here to close out the preseason where nobody's trying, no starters are playing. And then you have to take a week off until you get to the regular season. So there'll be a lot of anxious people going ahead, kind of like the guys that play with their poker chips the entire time that they're trying to figure out if they want to go in, stay in on a hand. A lot of people will be shuffling cash waiting for the start of the NFL season, which we hope to cash in on as well. All right, we hope to continue our streak. I'm going to lay out of the baseball playground for tonight. It's agony watching a game right down to the last out. It really is if you have money riding on it, and even more so if you're staking your reputation. Is that true, though? Is that part of gambling etiquette? Do you have to give a guy a couple of sticks? You hit for like $3-4 grand walking out of the track, and you're with a guy, a miserable, just whining, putz who has lost all of his money week after week. Do you have to throw him a couple of sticks on the way out the door? Or just say, hey, see you next time, Charlie? Well, we will see you next time. We'll see you on Monday. Sorry about not being able to bring you the professor. He had some very astute analysis for us here. And we'll try and resurrect that and get that together next week. For everybody connected here at nofilter.net with Bury Your Bookie, I'm Jeff Deforrest. Good luck, everybody. Lay the points with Florida State. That was a recommendation. And not an official pick of the program, but of our handicappers. And good luck as the college football season gets underway. We'll see you next time on the next edition of Bury Your Bookie.